The Forgotten Spiritual Roots of America. The founding of the United States of America was not merely a political revolution, it was a philosophical and spiritual one. Beneath the layers of Enlightenment rationalism, legal frameworks, and economic motivations lies a deeper current, the aspiration to build a society rooted in compassion, mutual respect, and universal dignity. While mainstream narratives emphasize battles and constitutions, a quieter truth deserves renewed attention. Many of the founding fathers were deeply influenced by Deism, Unitarianism, and Universalism, traditions that resonate with earth-based, cooperation-centered spiritualities, including those practiced by Indigenous peoples and inspired by the teachings attributed to Jesus the Nazarene. Here we see three of America's most influential founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, and Thomas Jefferson. Standing beside them are the women who supported their lives and legacies, wives, daughters, sisters, often unnamed in the public record, but central to their personal and philosophical development. These men were not Orthodox Christians. They were Deists, Unitarians, and moral philosophers who believed in reason, natural law, and universal human dignity. Their vision for a new nation was not built on religious dogma or conquest, but on compassion, cooperation, and liberty. This image reflects the ideal they hoped to build, a peaceful, egalitarian society rooted in mutual respect and moral enlightenment. The unnamed and virtually unknown women in their lives were Deborah Reed Franklin, Franklin's common-law wife, Sarah Franklin Bach, his only surviving daughter, active in revolutionary causes, Thomas Paine, author of The Age of Reason, never married and had no children. Martha Wayne Skelton Jefferson, Jefferson's wife, died young. Martha Patsy Jefferson Randolph, his eldest daughter, who managed Monticello after her mother's death. Now we revisit the vision, but more honestly. Among these faces stands Sally Hemings, an enslaved woman of mixed race who bore Thomas Jefferson's children. Her inclusion forces us to reckon with the contradictions at the heart of America's founding, a vision of liberty proclaimed by men who denied it to others. Sally's presence does not diminish the philosophical brilliance of Jefferson, Franklin, or Paine, but it challenges us to see the full truth. The American project was not only conceived in hope, it was born amid hypocrisy. Hemings represents the invisible labor, silenced voices, and hidden truths that must be acknowledged if we're to recover the spirit of cooperation and compassion that these men, at their best, tried to imagine. The name Philadelphia, meaning brotherly love, was not chosen by accident. Founded by William Penn, a Quaker and visionary, the city was meant to be a haven of religious freedom, peaceful coexistence, and democratic governance. Some scholars suggest that the name subtly honors Philo of Alexandria, the Jewish Hellenistic philosopher who sought to harmonize Greek reason with Essene-Nazarene ethics, a tradition that emphasized compassion, allegory, and communal life over authoritarian law. If this connection is intentional, it represents a powerful ideological inheritance. Philo taught that the highest purpose of humanity was the cultivation of logos, divine reason, through acts of justice, mercy, and cooperation. The same spirit may underlie the naming of Alexandria, Virginia, another echo of Philo's intellectual homeland. These place names suggest a conscious alignment with a tradition that emphasized allegory, compassion, and moral law written not merely in Scripture but in the hearts of those who seek the good of others. Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, and John Adams. These men were not evangelical Christians in the modern sense. Most were deists who believed in a creator but rejected religious dogma, miracles, and clerical authority. For them, God was best understood through reason and observation of nature. This aligned them with Unitarian and Universalist sensibilities, which emphasized the oneness of God, the moral potential of humankind, and the eventual salvation of all souls, not through blood sacrifice or fear, but through compassion and growth. In Jesus the Nazarene, they saw not a divine scapegoat, but a moral teacher who embodied the ethics of the Sermon on the Mount. Jefferson even created his own version of the Gospels, the life and morals of Jesus of Nazareth, excising supernatural elements to preserve what he considered the authentic teachings of wisdom and love. He was not alone in this endeavor. These founders understood the radical nature of Jesus' message, not as a theology of sin and substitution, but as a call to love one another, care for the poor, welcome the stranger, and forgive the enemy. Their goal, it seems, was to create a society where such values could take root not through religious compulsion, but through civic freedom and moral cultivation. The early American experiment was in many ways a new covenant, not between a tribe and a deity, but between individuals and their shared ideals. While many colonists brought with them Calvinist or Puritan doctrines rooted in fear, predestination, and sin, the Founders' Enlightenment Project sought a higher synthesis, one that incorporated indigenous respect for the earth, the Quaker commitment to pacifism, the Deist awe before the natural world, and the Universalist faith in the dignity of all souls. There was, at least for a time, an extraordinary hope that this new nation could avoid the cycles of tyranny, violence, and religious oppression that had plagued Europe for centuries. The Constitution deliberately excluded any religious test for office, a bold move that asserted the right of each person to pursue truth and the divine in their own way. But, as in the first century, when the teachings of Jesus the Nazarene were overshadowed by imperial Christianity, the idealism of the founders was eventually compromised. The 19th and 20th centuries saw the rise of Christian nationalism, racial supremacy, and economic exploitation. Cooperation gave way to conquest. The earth was no longer a sacred home, but a resource to be extracted. Compassion was replaced with competition. The divine image in each person, so carefully articulated by Deists and Unitarians, was obscured by systems of domination, religious, economic, and military. The philosophical and spiritual roots of the nation, rooted in Philo's logos, Jesus' ethics, and Enlightenment humanism, were not erased, but buried beneath narratives of exceptionalism and manifest destiny. The prophetic voices that once envisioned a land of brotherhood, shared stewardship, and moral growth were drowned out by the machinery of empire. To remember the founding of America solely in terms of revolution and independence is to overlook the spiritual revolution it once promised. Philadelphia and Alexandria were not mere cities, they were symbols of a dream that wisdom, justice, and cooperation could build a society more enduring than empire. Today, as the world faces new crises of inequality, violence, and ecological collapse, we're invited to return to those forgotten foundations, not to reestablish a theocracy, but to reawaken the philosophy of compassion that once stirred the hearts of those who dared to believe in liberty and justice for all. If Jesus the Nazarene taught that the kingdom of heaven was within us, perhaps the founders dreamed that it could also be among us.